What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be getting into my um, December 20th NCAA Bracketology Predictions. So let's dive right into this here. Starting up with the bracket watch. Top level seed now is Purdue. They did beat Arizona, so they only have one loss on the year. They are now the top team. First team out is Michigan State. They have completely dropped. I do believe they beat Baylor pretty good, or maybe Baylor came back. But when I checked, Michigan State was beating Baylor. Comment down below if you know what happened in that game. And then the last team in is South Carolina. So if we look at the bubble here, starting out with the last four byes, we have Florida, Providence, who last night just upset Marquette, New Mexico, and then Washington. Last for in, we do have Nevada, Nebraska, Kansas State, and then South Carolina. First for out, we have Michigan State, Butler, Virginia Tech, and Utah State. And then the next for out, Texas Tech, TCU, Cincinnati, and then Drake. So if we look at the bracket here and the movement here, starting out with the first four, Southern's going to be new to the field as a 16 seed. Kansas State going to be dropping down to that 12 seed, and then South Carolina also dropping down to the 12. And then Nevada is new to the field at an 11, and so is Nebraska. If we look at the Midwest region here, Purdue, obviously the top overall seed there. We have Iowa State going to be jumping up to the 8 seed. Miami going to be dropping down to the 9. Memphis going to be jumping up to the 5 seed. Indiana State new to the field as a 12 seed. Auburn jumping up to the 4 seed. McNeese State jumping up to the 13 seed. Grand Canyon going to be jumping up to the 11 seed. Baylor, as I mentioned, losing. They're going to be dropping down to the 3 seed, and then Longwood jumping up to the 14 seed, and then Morehead State jumping up to the 15 seed. And I'll imagine Marquette's going to drop down after losing to Providence. But that was last night, so this actually came out yesterday before the games. Anyway, moving on, we do have the Jayhawks, who just barely survive against I forgot who it was against. Someone. And then we have Utah jumping up to the 9 seed. Kentucky going to be jumping up to the 5 seed after beating North Carolina. Virginia going to be dropping down to the 6. Illinois dropping down to jumping up to the 3. Colorado jumping up to the 7. And then Vermont dropping down to the 15. In the East region here, we do have UConn as the 1 seed. Ole Miss jumping up to the 8 seed. Dayton jumping up to the 9 seed. North Carolina, as I mentioned, losing to Kentucky. They're going to be dropping down to the 5 seed. Alabama going to be dropping down to the 6 seed. San Diego State continues to fall down to the 7 seed. Florida dropping down to the 10. Oklahoma jumping up to the 2. And then Fort Wayne new to the field at the 15. In the West region, we do have Arizona as the number 1 seed. They're going from the top team down to this 1 seed. South Dakota State dropping out of the 16. Northwestern dropping out of the 9. Sorry, guys. Gonzaga dropping down to the 5. Washington jumping up to the 11. Creighton dropping down to the 3. James Madison has climbed up to a 10 seed. And then Weber State, new to the field, that's a 15. All right, but anyway, without further ado, let's get into this bracket here. Starting out with these first 4 games, we do have Kansas State taking on South Carolina, and I am going to go with Kansas State in that one. I do think Norfolk State would beat Marist. Nevada, I think, would hold on versus not New Mexico. Who was that? That was Nebraska. And then Merrimack, I think, will beat Southern. All right, so before we spot in the round of 32, we do have Purdue beating Merrimack. Miami pulling off the slight 9-8 over Iowa State. Memphis, I do think, will beat Indiana State. Auburn, I think, will beat McNeese State. And I'm going to go with an 11-6 upset. Grand Canyon over Colorado State. Don't get me wrong, Colorado State's been a really good team this season. I could see them maybe having a kind of a run like San Diego State had last year. But right now, not the biggest believer in that team. I am a believer in that Grand Canyon team who's been playing good basketball lately. They're going up against an upset candidate there. Give me Grand Canyon to pull off the win. Baylor, I do think would hold on versus Longwood. And then I would go with Ohio State to beat Mississippi State, and then Marquette to beat Morehead State. In this region, we do have Arizona pulling off the win over South Dakota State. Texas, I think, would hold on versus Northwestern. I'm going to go with another 12 over 5, or actually our first one. Give me Indiana to beat Gonzaga. I just don't believe right now in Gonzaga. If the season started right now, I think they would be upset. Indiana is a good 12 seed there out of the Big Ten, of course. Give me them to pull off the win. BYU, I do think would beat UC Irvine. And as much as I would want to go with Washington in that game, I am going to have to go with Duke to pull off the win. Creighton, I think, would beat Hofstra. And then give me the 10 seed James Madison to beat Texas A&M. I do really like Texas A&M, but I'm a more believer in James Madison. So give me them to pull off the win. And then Houston, I do think, would beat Weber State. In this region, Purdue versus Norfolk State. Give me Purdue. Villanova versus Utah, 8 versus a 9 seed. I am going to go with Villanova, but Utah's not. You can't sleep on that team right there. Kentucky, I do think, would beat Princeton. Florida Atlantic, I think, would hold off Liberty. Virginia, I think, would beat New Mexico. And then Illinois versus Colgate, I would go with Illinois. Colorado Providence. I'm going to go with the 10 over 7. Colorado Providence pulled off Colorado, not a bad team. Not the biggest believer in that team. You look at Providence pulling off the win this week against Marquette. That give me as much as I would want to pull them with the win. And then Tennessee versus Vermont. I am going to go with Vermont. I'm going to go with a 15 over a 2 seed. This Vermont team has continuously made March Madness, and we all know the 15 seeds have been beating 2 seeds in the bracket a lot recently. So, you know what? In this bracketology, I'm not a firm believer in a Tennessee team. Let's go with Vermont. I think this is my first 15 over 2 I've ever done in these. But Vermont, they are a good team, and I'm not a believer in that Tennessee team. So give me Vermont to pull off a massive upset and move on to the round of 32. And then we do have Connecticut, I think, beating Lipscomb. I'm going to go with the 9 seed Dayton to beat Ole Miss. North Carolina, I think, would hold off Kansas State, as well as Wisconsin beating Akron. Alabama, Nevada. Give me the 11 seed over 6. Not the biggest believer in Alabama. Nevada coming off that first 4 game. There's always usually a first 4 team to win. I think Nevada could do that there. And then I was tempted to go with the 14 over 3 there, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with Clemson to beat UNC Greensboro, but I could see that being an upset. And then San Diego State, Florida. I'm going to go with the 10 over 7 with Florida. Oklahoma, I do think, would beat Longwood. Okay, for a spot in the Sweet 16, we do have Purdue pulling off the win over Miami. Auburn versus Memphis, 5 versus a 4 seed. Give me Memphis, the 5 seed right there. Baylor, Grand Canyon. I'm going to go with the 11 seed Grand Canyon to continue their run to the Sweet 16, the Grand Canyon team. This is a good team. Not a believer in that Baylor team. Give me Grand Canyon. And then Marquette, I do think, would beat Ohio State. All right, over here, Arizona, Texas. Give me Arizona. BYU, I think, would be able to hold off Indiana. Creighton, Duke, interesting game. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils, though, and in a 6 over 3 upset. Really like that Creighton team. I have been moving them far in my bracketologies, but this time I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. And then Houston, I think, will be able to beat James Madison. All right, up here, Purdue, Villanova. Give me Purdue. Kentucky, give me Florida Atlantic to pull off the win over Kentucky. Or, no, I think Florida Atlantic would just be outmatched in that one. So give me Kentucky. Illinois, Virginia. Give me Virginia or Illinois, sorry. And then Providence, Vermont, set 10 versus 15 seed. Why not? Why not bring Vermont to the Sweet 16 here? You know, whenever a 15 seed wins, it's usually the past few years they've usually made it even further. So I see that again this year. Give me Vermont in the dub. All right, Connecticut I do think would beat Dayton. North Carolina, Wisconsin, 5 versus 4 seed. Give me North Carolina, just barely. I'm gonna go with Clemson to hold off against Nevada, and then Oklahoma versus Florida. I am gonna go with the Sooners. So I don't think any region we have all 1 through 4. Yeah, no chalk. I believe, yep, no chalk. So, moving on. Purdue, Memphis, 1 versus a 5 seed. I'm going to have to go with Purdue as much as I love that Memphis team. Purdue is playing good basketball right now. And then Marquette, I do think would be able to hold off Grand Canyon and end that incredible run. All right, Arizona, BYU. As much as I want to go with BYU, I am going to have to go with Arizona in that one. And then Houston, I think, would beat Duke. So all chalk so far, the top 1 through 2 in the Sweet 16. We do have wait, what in the world? So this is Kansas. I just realized that I've been doing Purdue all the way. So my fault, guys. So I would go with Kansas to beat Villanova, and I would go with Kansas to beat Norfolk State. So Kansas, Kentucky. In that case, let's go with the 5/1. Let's go with Kentucky to pull off the win in this chaos region. Give me the Wildcats to pull off the upset. And then Illinois versus Vermont. As much as I want to go with Vermont there, gotta go with the 3-seeded Illinois team. Okay, down here, Connecticut, North Carolina. I am going to go with UConn. And then Oklahoma versus Clemson. I'm going to go with the Sooners, just barely there, an undefeated team. Okay, Purdue versus Marquette for a spot in the Final Four. I'm going to go with Purdue. You know, originally I probably would go with Marquette in this one, but Marquette just lost to Providence, so that kind of changes my input here. So give me Purdue to move on. And then Arizona versus Houston. As much as I want to go with Houston here, yeah, I'm going to have to go with Arizona to move on past Houston as the 1 seed. Kentucky, Illinois, 5 versus 3 seed. Let's go with the Wildcats, the 5 seed, moving on to the Final Four right there, pulling off the win. And then Connecticut versus Oklahoma. I'm going to go with UConn. So we're going to have 3 number 1 seeds, but a 5 seed in the Final Four. Interesting bracket that we've been getting here. So for a spot in the national championship rematch, Purdue, Arizona. And this time, I think Arizona gets the better of Purdue and wins it to move on. And then we have Kentucky versus UConn. Let's go with the 5-seeded Kentucky team to beat UConn and go on this crazy run to the national championship game where they will face Arizona. And I'm going to go with Arizona, though. Just barely picking the Wildcats to beat Kentucky, but a good national championship run there for the Wildcats. All right, anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video today. It was a crazy one. We had Vermont pulling off the win, going to the Sweet 16 as a 15. But anyway, guys, hopefully you all enjoyed it. Comment down below your predictions. Anyway, peace out.